You know, everybody says that Lost sort of changed the landscape of television. We all have ideas about how it did that. What are sort of your thoughts on how it did that?
I haven't really given it much thought until I've been done this red carpet tonight. But I'm just thinking, I saw a show the other day and they said it was the new Lost. And I'm thinking, how many times have I heard it's the new Lost? So Lost obviously has set the bar at such a level that everyone wants to beat it or certainly reach it. When I hear that, I think, oh wow, I wasn't lost. So it set the bar at a very high level. I think it's hard for other shows now when they say that to do that. So
I think it brought more of a. It kind of showed that people are interested in stuff that's kind of serialized. People are interested in crazy science fiction elements if they're with characters that people care about. That the audience is out there for it. And in that sense, just shows that came after Lost that definitely had just kind of thematic or elements that felt that they could have been inspired by Lost, or just that Lost then suddenly made people go like, all right, well, there was Lost, so maybe we can take a chance on this, is great. Because, anytime there's a scripted show, it's more work for actors. And that, I'm happy if Lost had any part in that, it's great.
I feel that there was, great serialized television happening before Lost, and there is after us. We're proud to be a part of that legacy. I consider, all of Joss Whedon's shows to be heavily serialized and mythologized, and every season went deeper and deeper in terms of saying, if you haven't been watching since the very beginning, go screw yourself. This is for the fans and the fans alone. I always love shows like that don't pander to the uninitiated. And I'm always keeping my eyes peeled for a pilot where I feel that certain, that moment of love at first sight. And, I felt it a number of times since Lost ended, but those shows feel totally unlost-like to me. I think there are shows like Orange is the New Black that, couldn't be further from Lost, but they use a flashback device that helps me feel like I'm getting a much deeper, richer experience with the characters. And so if it floats my boat, I stole all these things from other shows and movies that I loved. If someone says to me who's working on a show that I watch, hey, I really was into Lost, that's the greatest compliment that I could ever be paid.
I think it set a very, very super high bar. You mean in the context of a 22-episode network show, where typically if you're on HBO or Showtime, you have 10, 15-episode seasons, you get an exorbitant amount of time to produce all of that and really sort of fine-tune it and distill it into what you want the message and the story to be. In a 22-episode show like this, the fact that they cranked all this out for that long is amazing. And the way the landscape changed, I think, and what do I know, but it set a bar where you had this super high concept show that had a ton of heart and an exorbitant amount of nuance and mythology and stuff that...
dense in a way almost no television has been.
Yeah, I would say that was the operative. The operative word would be dense.
I read a few pilots this year and I was thinking so much about wow, it was so ahead of its time. Before we had these cable outlets and internet channels and things like that, it really trusted that the audience would stick around. It gave its audience a lot of credit. It was much more serialized, character-driven drama than was the norm at all. The fact that they would have characters do whole scenes in Korean with subtitles, or have loose ends that they never picked up, or would sort of surrender to mystery sometimes. I mean, these were all really brave things, and it had this really expansive sense of space and cinematic feeling. Like it did not feel like a small screen experience in any way, and just complex characters that had shades of gray and nuance that weren't sort of good or bad, that we couldn't predict what they would necessarily do, but we really felt connected to them. It was really brave writing.